Good morning, boys and girls. How are you? It has been a really good week. I hope that you have gotten outside and you played. We have had especially great weather Friday and Saturday, so I'm hoping that you got outside and got some energy off running around, being crazy, being kids. So today, our story continues from where we left off last week. And what happened last week? Jesus rose from the dead. How exciting is that? And who was the first person to see him? It was Mary. That's right. Mary saw him. She thought he was the gardener. So, maybe, have you ever dressed up in, say, maybe a Halloween costume or some other form of dress-up clothes, and your friends maybe didn't recognize you? That happens once in a while, right? So today, in our story, it happens right in the morning after Jesus rose from the dead, and after he had seen Mary. So then, that same day, two of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles out of Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking about everything that had happened. Suddenly, Jesus himself came alongside and joined them. But they didn't know who he was, because God had kept them from recognizing him. And Jesus said, "You seem to be deep in discussion about something. What are you so concerned about?" And they stopped short, sadness written across their faces. Then one of them, Caiaphas, replied, "You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the things that have happened there in the last few days." "What things?" Jesus asked. "The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth," they said. "He was a prophet who did wondrous miracles. He was a mighty teacher, highly regarded by both God and all the people. But our leading priests and other religious leaders arrested him and handed him over to be condemned to death. And they crucified him. We had thought he was the Messiah, who had come to rescue Israel. That all happened 3 days ago. Then some women from our group of his followers were at his tomb early this morning, and they came back with an amazing report. They said his body was missing, and they had seen some angels who told them that Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran to the tomb and to see, and sure enough, Jesus' body was gone, just as the women had said." So here he was. He was gone. Then Jesus said to them, "You are such foolish people. You find it so hard to believe that all that the prophets wrote in the scriptures? Wasn't it clearly predicted by the prophets that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his time of glory?" Then Jesus quoted passages from the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining what all the scriptures said about himself. By this time they were nearing Emmaus, and at the end of their journey, Jesus would have gone on, but they begged him to stay and have supper with them and spend the night. And as they sat down to eat, he took a small loaf of bread and asked God's blessing on it. He broke it, then he gave it to them. And suddenly their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And at that moment, he disappeared. He was gone again. And they said to each other, "Didn't our hearts feel strangely warm as he talked with us about the scriptures and explained them to us?" And within the hour, they were on their way back to Jerusalem, where the 11 disciples and other followers of Jesus were gathered. When they arrived, they were greeted with the report, "The Lord really has risen. He appeared to Peter." And so, what does this tell us about Jesus? First of all, it tells us that Jesus died for our sins and he rose again. Here's 2 more people that encountered him, that got to talk with him, even though at first they didn't recognize him. And while they're walking, Jesus talks to them. And he is so good at explaining the scriptures because they're about him, right? The best teacher is Jesus. We can only see Jesus for who he really is when the Holy Spirit opens our eyes. So it's the Holy Spirit that Jesus sent that opens our eyes so that we can see him and we can recognize that Jesus is God. Now that's our story for today. I pray that you will have a great and wonderful day and that you will recognize Jesus when you see him. All right, boys and girls, I'll see you next time.